You're listening to episode 70 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Nicolas Pineault, the EMF guy. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Hen, and welcome to the Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we dive into what makes an awesome lifestyle. From relationships to money mindset, nutrition to fitness, emotional health to peak performance, we bring you on an amazing journey to unleashing your human potential. So here's a little bit about our guest today. Nicolas is actually a really cool dude, super duper smart. So make sure you do pay attention to this because EMFs are no joke. And if this is the first time you're hearing about this, listen in and get his book, which we'll give details in the show notes about, but make sure you go ahead and do that. So he's a health journalist who has published more than 1,500 online articles through a daily newsletter called Nick and Jen's Healthy Life. That's Jen with a G-E-N. In 2017, he authored the Non-Tinfoil Guide to EMFs, an unconventional book endorsed by top health authorities such as Dr. Mercola. It's pretty big. And which combines common sense and humor to tackle the very serious topic of electromagnetic pollution and its effects on human health. You're going to learn a lot about this guy today, but you're really going to learn a lot about EMFs, and we had some pretty cool conversations through the podcast. So make sure you pay attention. So here's Nicolas. Okay, everyone, in the locker room today, our guest is Nick. He is a superstar. He's got a website, Nick and Jen's Healthy Life, and he is actually the master now, as far as I know, of the EMF research. Oh, he's not the researcher, but doing all of this research on EMF and its health. I can't even say benefits, really, but on EMF, we'll say that.
Yeah, well, there can be benefits.
There can be benefits.
It depends on which EMFs. Yes.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Josh. I'm really glad to be here.
Good. So let's hear, you've had this booming, busy, blog-based website that's pumping out, thousands of articles, right? You said on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you're an avid content reader and then distributor, if you will. And you've kind of found your way into EMF. Can you kind of tell us about that journey, if you will?
Sure. Well, I've been learning about health for, I guess, 2008, 2009 is really my beginning. I was a young man, 5'4", trying to gain muscle. So it means that you read a lot about how to gain muscle. And I learned through informational products, online people that were personal trainers and that distributed content in exchange for money. So at the same time that I was an avid content consumer, I thought, maybe I can make a business out of it and talk about my passion. And my new passion was nutrition. So how to gain muscle through nutrition. And eventually I didn't feel good eating about 6,000 calories. Can you believe it at 5'4"? I just think about it. The crazy days, just trying to do everything to gain mass and feeling pretty darn bad about it. By the digestion, all these side effects. So I figured, maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. So got me into nutrition, eventually got me into other aspects of health. So this holistic approach, looking at, maybe my sleep isn't right. Well, I was sleeping 5 hours sometimes and going out a lot. The university after that didn't improve things at all. And so that's years ago. And throughout the years, I started publishing information online. And I thought, well, I have a background in communications. I was a copywriter for TV for 3 years, and on the side, I wanted to develop my own thing. I figured, well, I'm putting together all this information about nutrition, for example. Well, the fact that saturated fats, maybe they're not as bad as we thought they were, or cholesterol in egg yolks. What about these paleo guys that they say all these things, and then the mainstream says another thing? And that fascinates me, and that also shocks me, and that angers me at a deep level. I'm like, well, people need to hear the truth, because I keep seeing these people eating only egg whites. What gives? They should be eating. So I have this kind of very deep passion for finding the truth and then telling people about it as much as possible. So got me into Nick and Jen's Healthy Life since 2013. Me and my wife, Jen, she's my business partner, my wife, and mom to be in a couple of months.
Congratulations.
So we're super, thank you. We're super excited about that. So we're really this couplepreneur team that we call it. So we got together, built this business in the end that was publishing an ebook about nutrition. It used to be called The Truth About Fat Burning Foods. So really looking at which foods should you eat to lose weight. And that was really the appeal of the market at the time. Before the paleo times, actually, 2013, it was really early paleo. Eventually, I got out of food and more like into a lot of cutting edge technologies to heal that I learned from several doctors. So just this curiosity about all sorts of topics. And for years, I wrote a daily article. I'm still writing as we recording this, I'm still writing a daily article for Nicolas Healthy Life. But at the same time, in the last 2 years, I felt like I was a little bit blocked. I felt good at several things, but not great at anything as a health journalist. So I learned a little bit about infrared saunas and vitamin D and this different compound and this and that, but I just felt that I was losing my mojo a little bit, my interest in health. I'm like, what is going on? It's like, this is really my life passion. So what should I do? And I got into cell phones, learned about the dangers of cell phone through a couple of books like Martin Blank, Overpowered, Deborah Davis, Disconnect. And I started reading like I do when I dive into a topic. I read everything instead of like, I cannot just read one or two books. I started having like, okay, I'm gonna create a library of all the YouTube videos I can find about EMFs and convert them to audio, put them on my cell phone, and then starting the first second of the morning, I'm just listening and learning. And eventually I realized, oh my God, this is actually not only a very credible topic, EMFs, where most people, it kind of sounds crazy. It's actually, it's happening right now, and the technology might not be as safe as we thought. So electromagnetic fields, that's EMFs, and these wireless signals, previously scientists thought, well, it's no big deal that we increase them so much and that cell phones become more powerful. We have all these cell phone towers. We're exposed to something called electrosmog in a sense. It's a kind of new pollution and it's invisible. And talking about it kind of sounds crazy because it's invisible and most people cannot feel it. You don't hear it. So it's kind of crazy. But at the same time, it's the same thing for X-ray, which is another type of radiation that we know is damaging. When it comes to these EMFs like cell phones and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, we don't know for sure that they're damaging. But what I found through the work of others, I really don't have any credit, I just put the dots together, is that, well, there's a lot of very convincing scientific evidence that is showing that EMFs have health effects. And it's not just me saying it. For example, there are several countries now that look at the data available on EMFs and they say, well, we need to reduce these levels. And that's based on the same data that in the US and Canada, most authorities or most people and physicists and engineers say there's nothing there. We don't need to do anything. Oh, yeah, I know what we should do. We should increase the signals.
Yeah.
So it's just a different mentality. But around the world, there are several governments that are telling, you know what, we should, for example, France has decided for many reasons to ban smartphones in primary school at the door. So you're going to have a little basket where you put your phone in and you check it in and check it out at the end of the day. So several countries are taking action on EMFs. And in the meantime, it's still a huge hot topic for debate. And that's why I ended up writing an entire book about it. And my angle, I wanted to acknowledge that it kind of sounds crazy. So that's why I called it the Non-Tinfoil Guide to EMFs. Yeah. And with humor and with lightness, because what I found is polar opposites. People that say, no, there's nothing, and people who said it's the end of the world as we know it. And somewhere in between is the truth, I think. It depends on how sensitive you are and how pissed off you feel about the topic. But and today I'm becoming more and more of a safe technology advocate, trying to get on your show, on several shows, on TV, trying to talk about it and to say, you know what, guys, maybe we don't have definitive proof on whether cell phones are dangerous and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but the proof that we have that is convincing is telling us, is imploring us to at least reduce our exposure the best we can, just like we do with other environmental factors like mold and like mercury and like pollution. It's the same thing, same category in my mind.
Yeah, I don't have any personal experience like you may have said, like, you know, like I had my cell phone on me and I started to get really sick. But I did hear Dave Asprey of Bulletproof on stage. I think it was last year, or the year before, and he mentioned he's always had his smartphone, his cell phone, in a little pocket on his thigh, always in the same exact spot. Whenever he was working or throughout the day, and he had I believe a bone density test done or some kind of scan done.
Probably a DEXA. Yeah,
it may have been a DEXA, exactly. But where his leg was a spot that was not. The bone was not the same as it was anywhere else in the leg, on the opposite leg, or anywhere in the body. And he goes, well, that's exactly where I keep my cell phone. I'm like, huh. So, just like that was my first exposure to even think about it a couple of years ago.
Gotcha.
Like, I got to keep my phone somewhere else.
Yeah, well, and when you look at the data, I mean, and you could think, a little bit less bone density, it looks very dangerous. Maybe if you put it, I don't know, in your back pocket and it's your spine or something, could have huge damage to your biology. But you're like, okay, well, that's something. But what about things that are more fragile than bones? So, for example, sperm. Well, if you put it in your front pocket, there's just in the last 10 years, I could find 10 meta-analyses looking at 201 studies, and each one of these meta-analyses that look at a bunch of studies only kept those of the highest quality possible. They all say the same thing. EMFs from cell phones will reduce every single aspect of sperm quality. Motility, it causes DNA damage in sperm, and this is published science. Like the evidence is almost overwhelming, and I still see people saying there's no evidence. And I'm like, well, at least don't keep it in your pocket. And some fertility clinics are starting to say that to men, and they're seeing a difference. So it's still very early, but it's just common sense now that I think a cell phone should come with a warning: do not put it in your pocket. I mean, the science is there.
I'll let you think. Listen to this for a second. So I just got a new phone a few months ago. My wife has an iPhone. Open the box. There are warnings there.
Sure, about the distance.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Don't put it by your head.
Yep.
Don't okay, hold on. You're making phones with little earpieces on them, but do not put this by your head.
So this is there's a lot of problems here, and when California, the California Department of Health, just at the end of December, it was, I think, that they published these recommendations that had been buried for 7 years or almost 8. So 2010, they wanted to say, well, we don't know if they're dangerous or not, so let's kind of avoid them, exposure to head. But the industry said, well, it's going to create a scare in users. And I mean, yes, it's a free country, and probably they had a point, and the judge said they have a point. Let's not talk about it. Okay. 2017, they released these, and now the judge had another opinion, because since 2011, it's a class 2B carcinogen. But the same guys, the same researchers, at least I could count 6 to 8 of them among the huge group of researchers that were maybe 36 that looked at the classification as a carcinogen for cell phone radiation and other types of EMFs. They're saying now, most of them are saying it's at least 2A, which is a probable carcinogen, or class 1, that is a definite carcinogen like smoking and asbestos. And these are the same scientists. One of them is Leonard Hardell. He's the guy who first warned about the fact that, hey guys, maybe Agent Orange might be a carcinogen. That was back in after Vietnam. So this guy is not anyone. He's not an alarmist, an activist, a quack, a tinfoil. Yeah. He's the highest level of research around what's a carcinogen and what's not. Then he's saying it's a class 1. I would be worried. Yeah, I don't want to wait.
I don't want to pause you for a second, but people listening, a carcinogen, things that cause cancer, bad. Kill cells, mutate cells.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody listening is understands, because this is big. This is not exactly. It's kind of bad for you. It could be hugely bad for you.
It could be very bad for you. And now the question is, there are a couple questions after that. You're like, okay, well, smoking, people can still smoke in our society. It's a free society. They can actually I don't know, smoke a carcinogen and it's okay. And we'll still, well, if you have public healthcare like in Quebec, it's will still heal you, even though you kind of cause your own cancer and whatnot. So there's all these questions about, okay, is it okay to still allow people to use a carcinogen just as a recreational? But if a cell phone is put eventually in the same category as a cigarette, how do you avoid secondhand EMF?
Yeah.
It's like, can you tell your neighbor so do you, it's hard because secondhand smoking, you can see it, you can smell it. You're like, someone's been smoking here. They shouldn't inside. It's forbidden. You can identify, but someone just having a cell phone in their pocket that's open, it's another question. So it's way more complicated than smoking, I think.
Yeah. So then let's jump here. So I know we're
Sure.
like, I got to start on a rant on cell phones because of what I've heard, but let's kind of, I mean, EMF is not just cell phones. Right, and I want you to kind of just, you don't have to list everything, but give us a good idea. Give us, what are the things that, in our house are giving off some of the worst EMFs, or if you want to describe, if there's a certain frequency that's maybe a healthy frequency for a human, there are bad frequencies for a human, or life and period, and then go into what we have in our homes that may be either helping us or hurting us.
Sure. So the easiest way to understand frequencies is that there's an entire thing called the electromagnetic spectrum. So it goes from, at the beginning, you've got very low frequency, like household wiring, 50 to 60 hertz, and that's cycles per second. Not important. Forget about it. And then at the end, you've got nuclear radiation, and it destroys everything, right? So this is all part of a spectrum. Somewhere in between the middle, you have something called light. Light is actually a kind of electromagnetic field that we can see, right? There's also light that we cannot see, though. For example, infrared, you can feel it. You have heat on your skin, but you cannot see infrared. Some animals can, we can't. UV light, you go in the sun, you get UV, you get a tan. You get too much UV, too much of a good thing, you get burned. So certain frequencies in nature can hurt us and heal us depending on the dose. UV, you get just enough. You get vitamin D. It's incredible for your immune system. It's cancer protective. It's essential for your well-being, pretty much. So the radiation or the frequencies that we're exposed to through our modern technology like cell phones and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi is something called a microwave signal, microwave frequency. So it's actually the same frequency as your microwave oven. But a microwave oven, obviously, it agitates particles of water in your food, and this is how it can cook it from the inside out. Not very precisely most of the time because there's frozen spots, but still, that's the idea. A microwave is around 1,000 watts, but a cell phone is a fraction of that, less than 1 watt most of the time. Don't quote me on this one, but it's a fraction of that. So it cannot cook your head, but it doesn't mean it's not affecting you. And just the frequency of cell phones in nature, it was almost never seen. So the levels ambient in a city, depending on who you ask, they're a quadrillion or a quintillion higher than back in Mother Nature. That's the microwave EMFs. So it's a foreign signal. It's the same thing if I tell you the amount of mercury that we're exposed to is higher than in nature. Well, that's true. In nature, you have some mercury, maybe in the earth that's occurring naturally. Maybe even someone could argue, well, you need arsenic to grow plants if you don't have them. But if you pollute the air with millions of times the levels of mercury and arsenic, there's something unnatural going on. And then you have people with toxic burden. Same thing is happening for EMF. So you have these new frequencies that the meme was previously from authorities. They're perfectly safe because this is a low-level EMF. This is non-ionizing. And there's a whole distinction. Ionizing is X-rays and something that can break your DNA. That's what science found decades ago. And this is why they rolled out X-rays in shoe stores. They used to be X-raying children to see that the shoe is a perfect fit. That's in the 50s.
Yeah,
and eventually
that's not that long ago.
Yeah, well, exactly. So eventually you realize, oh my God, what are we doing, it's that this thing will cause cancer. And what we know when it comes to X-rays is that every time you're exposed to an X-ray, it accumulates this DNA damage, and eventually downstream effect is cancer and a bunch of other things that's been seen, like leukemia and dentists and a lot of different professions that were working with X-rays. That's how the regulation changed, and now X-rays can have benefits. You can save people's lives with it. You can have detrimental effects, but most of the time now it's only used in a medical setting. Now we're in the middle of a huge experiment in a sense, because some people say microwave signals are perfectly safe at levels like a quintillion times Mother Nature, and some say, wait a minute, guys, we are seeing effects, but we don't know exactly how they're happening. And now some researchers in just the last few years have found the mechanisms that show how these very low power signals can affect us. And one of the main way is that it will basically cause a little gate inside the cell membrane of every cell in your body called the VGCC, voltage gated calcium channel. Imagine it's a little garage door that has sensors on it, and these sensors respond to voltage that's very, very, very low. So if you only have Wi-Fi in the room, it's going to tell your cell to let calcium flow in. And well, calcium is a good mineral. So why is that a problem? Well, normally you have a certain balance of calcium and other minerals inside your cell. And when you have too much calcium, guess what happens? DNA damage. The same DNA damage that is seen with X-rays is happening, but not directly. It is an indirect effect that is happening in the cells. So for you, what does it mean? It means that the worst sources in your house might be affecting your health in a bunch of ways. So let's name these sources. Your cell phone, having it near your bed or under the pillow, and there's something like 15% of all adults that were surveyed that's fall asleep with their cell phone in hand. So obviously they don't hit airplane mode, right? So they have these signals all night. Wi-Fi routers. A Wi-Fi router is a big source. It's emitting 24/7. So something very important to do is making sure it's not under your bed, because maybe the tech guy thought it was a good idea to have it here. It's creating distance, so putting it in a corner of the home as far away as your bedroom and living areas as possible. And then at night, turning it off at night. Nothing bad will happen. The main side effect you'll get is better sleep. So these signals overall, this is really the two worst sources at home that you can think of. Another would be cordless phones that are pretty much like cell phones, and they have a little base station that can emit. Actually, these can be pretty nasty. And other things like smart this and smart that, smart light, smart thermostat. These guys usually are very low power because it's Bluetooth, but overall is contributing. Imagine you have one air freshener here, you have a new carpet that outgasses, you have this and that and chemical cleaners and formaldehyde. Well, it accumulates to create what? Air pollution. Same thing for electrosmog. What electrosmog are you creating yourself inside your home? So think about all the different things that you have, and it's like, it can get very high very quick if you're not aware that in the first place that it might be a problem.
Yeah. What about lighting?
Well, lighting, one of the worst kind of lights you can have is a CFL. So that's a curly light bulb, compact fluorescent light. It can create a big magnetic field and electrical fields around it, and even other frequencies called dirty electricity. So it can actually make the entire electricity in your home more stressful to your body. Let's put it that way in a very simple terms. So it's good on an energy standpoint, but the way it saves energy is that it's turning on and off multiple thousands of times a second. So you don't see it, but every in between each flicker on and off, it's saving a little bit of electricity. But the effect is creating this dirtiness on the electricity of your home. So generally, people feel better when they remove them. That's what I can tell you.
Okay, so incandescent, which I guess are almost like illegal.
In certain states, they almost are. Yeah.
So like an LED would be the best benefit. I mean, I shouldn't say the best, but better than a CFL.
For sure better. and I'd say halogen or incandescent number one, halogen number two, and then LED number three, especially just considering that's in a whole another rabbit hole, but the effects that the artificial lighting can have on us. So it's because it's a very different spectrum than the sun. So
So, but you can, and I was just learning and listening to this, you can actually get, regular bulbs or even like an LED that will be at a certain frequency, which is better than another.
So it will actually have a different spectrum or a different light color. For example, if you get LEDs, you want to get something that is as warm as possible. So something that tends to be more orange and not like pure white.
Like blue-white,
Yeah, blue-white, and also it doesn't look pretty, let's face it. It looks super like, I don't know. I just hate it at home when we have these kind of colors. It's so white and so cold in a sense. So bonus points, you'll feel just better at home. But yeah, definitely on the side of like 2700K. So that's like kind of warm colors. It's way better, more natural for biology.
Okay, I have another. I'm just thinking of this now. I'm in a car all the time.
Yeah.
Which I'm not in a hybrid, which makes me even think of, or even like a Tesla, that you're sitting on this giant battery. Which I don't know frequency, if that's going to be something that we're going to see. My mechanic goes, I drive a truck. I'm kind of a redneck, but not really. But I drive a pickup truck, and I was like, I was thinking of I'll look into getting a Tesla or Prius, something like to drive around. And he goes, why would you want to sit on top of a giant battery? He goes, I think in 20 years you're going to see a lot of things going on with people's health because they're sitting on this giant battery. I don't know if that's an EMF thing that he was thinking of or what.
Well, maybe he didn't know the science, but basically these batteries will emit a very large magnetic field and an electrical field. So I've heard reports. This is nothing. This is only me interpreting what I heard. There's no science around hybrid cars, electric cars. They're so new. One thing I know for sure, people that are electrosensitive. So that's a condition where you've been exposed so much to EMFs and maybe other aspects of your health are suffering that you feel hypersensitive. You respond, maybe you hold a cell phone in your hand and you feel numb. You feel direct responses and you feel sick when you hang out in the wrong environment. So that's recognized, even though even that is controversial. Most doctors will think it's all in the head, it's psychosomatic. There are actually for some people it is. It might be even like they convince themselves that it's a problem, and that's of course we all do that with all sorts, even with toxins. Even me talking about EMF, some people would go in fear and say, "Well, I feel it now." Maybe not. It's a very dangerous kind of slippery slope. But Dr. Balpam, he's a top researcher on electrosensitivity from France, and he has identified several blood markers that actually confirm that people have a jacked up immune reaction in front of Wi-Fi allergy or cell phone allergy.
Wow.
A legit thing. So they will have myelin antibodies. So basically they will have an autoimmunity in the nervous system. They will have a histamine reaction on the skin. So some of them can get skin rashes from just being exposed to a Wi-Fi router. So that's something you can observe. You cannot deny that it's happening, right? Some people get burns, literally, and that's not burns from the signal. It is burns from almost imagine someone who's stung by a bee and nearly chokes to death. It's the same kind of reaction where it's almost
like anaphylaxis. Yeah,
exactly. So for some people, this is actually something that is happening. So for these people, would I recommend an electric car? No, for sure. These guys are super sensitive. For the average population, hard to tell if it's going to worsen things. But I would err on the side of caution. So for me, I wouldn't personally purchase a hybrid or electric car. I heard some people that become more sensitive after owning this car for several years. That's just anecdotes. I don't know exactly what else to tell you aside from the fact that some people have 4G hotspots in their car now, and it's right there near you. So even if you turn off your own cell phone, well, your car is a cell phone. So
Yeah, that's crazy.
unfortunately, some rental cars that Jen and I have rented throughout our travels, you cannot turn it off. So it's unfortunate that you're not given this option if you don't need it, if you want to save, like, even if you just want to save like electricity and battery life on your car, who cares? You cannot turn it off. It's not even an option. So for people that feel sensitive, want to reduce their EMF exposure, I would recommend kind of having an older car or making sure that your model can turn it off, because the hotspot is right there and you're exposed while you're driving. The Germans, there's a German group. I saw a German video, so I could pick up the ideas, but I translated the article that came with it. They did that last year. They had someone with an EEG on their head driving around, and they saw reduction in every single aspect of what makes a good driver when they activated the hotspot in the car versus not activated. And it was a direct response. So they saw response time. They saw, especially when it comes to the right brain waves, like was the person in the right mood, and it caused anxiety in the driver and all sorts of different things. And it was just one experiment with a few subjects, but it was revealing. I'm trying to get a hold of this video and translate it. I don't know if they're going to answer to me. Maybe they don't even speak English, but if someone can translate German for me, please get in touch. But that's something that shocked me. I'm like, oh my God, it might be, if eventually this is found out to be true, well, of course, hotspots are going to be banned from cars because they might be responsible for bad drivers and bad behavior. Who knows?
Yeah. So let's go here. So we've identified that, certain EMFs can be pretty horrible. Right. Yeah. So for the listener that's like, holy crap, I'm going to be living in a cave very soon without a cell phone.
Yeah.
What are some things that you can, do in your house? I've heard this, and I think our audience has heard this a couple times, like, setting your Wi-Fi router to a sleep mode when you go to sleep, putting your phone on airplane mode. But is there a way maybe that, our audience could inexpensively or free, probably inexpensively, get like a way to read, like, okay, how bad is my sleeping area with EMF, or how bad is, my work area?
Yeah, well, inexpensively, hopefully in the future is going to get less expensive, but the minimum EMF meter that I would recommend is $179. So it's still quite an investment. You got to really be motivated in any topic to drop to $100. But still, it's called the Cornet ED88T, and this Cornet helps you kind of identify. Well, if you follow my book, it really gives you kind of what numbers to look for, and it's the exact meter I use throughout my book. So that's something where you can go around and you can, bring it at work. You can look at your different exposures, but hopefully in the near future, I think I might be contributing to one invention that Dr. Klinghardt was trying to get created, and that's a dosimeter. So just having a little dot you can wear all day, and then you can send the data to your smartphone, and that tells you, well, you've been exposed to XYZ cumulative amount of Wi-Fi today. And then you can see how this affects your metrics and your health. I think we need these kind of tools that are way better indication of how much like new kind of EMFs you're exposed to versus a meter that's just a reading tool. It might be even better, because it's not necessarily one exposure at work, it's all your exposure all day. So one thing you can do to reduce your exposure, and a lot of people these days that work on a computer work on Wi-Fi all day, every day, and for no necessarily good reason. Sometimes they have the opportunity of having a wired cable at work, but don't even use it because they don't think about it. So just if you cannot work, well, having your computer wired in, and then you turn off the Wi-Fi icon, and right there you've removed maybe 8 to 10 hours a day of Wi-Fi exposure, and it makes a difference. So the dose makes the poison, and it's the dose times how many days and how many decades in reality, because let's face it, Wi-Fi will still be around in 50 years. I don't think, or maybe it will be better Wi-Fi and less harmful. That's another question, but it will still be around. So it's reducing your exposure as much as you can manage to. That's very important.
Huh. That's interesting. So are there devices? I've heard things like like the Himalayan salt rocks Like running those to, I don't know if that helps EMF or if that's just energy
Yeah.
or,
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. All these devices. So you're talking about chips, pendants, and
yeah.
stickers, and so I'm really really not sure I can recommend a product, and the reason is kind of simple. All these products, some of them make crazy claims. They will say it nullifies all EMFs. They will say stuff like that. Well, probably not accurate. If you have a meter, you see that the EMFs are not gone. It's just that most users won't have a meter to verify. They kind of use sleazy marketing that way. Some claim it will harmonize the EMFs, as if you have maybe a new cell phone signal that's foreign to your body, and maybe this device will somehow transform it into something that your body goes, oh, okay, now I'm fine, I don't feel anything. But the studies are not solid enough. I need to be convinced. I talked about calcium channels. I need to be convinced that these do not open, that the cells don't have any effect, and that your body completely ignores this signal. And until I have that, I cannot endorse any of these products, because even though some people have reported feeling better, I don't know if they're feeling better when in reality they're still getting the same amount of damage. I mean, if someone these days would recommend, I have this pendant and makes me invincible, and it makes me feel good, even though I'm exposed to X-rays all day. Everyone would say that's crazy talk. Like, do not risk this. First, remove the X-ray, shield yourself, and then maybe have something that supports your immune system, or maybe that calms down your body. So the same idea is this: when it comes to Wi-Fi, to any EMF, first you try to reduce your exposure. So you put yourself on airplane mode. You try to work with a wired computer. You just do what you can with the kind of investment you have, with the kind of sensitivity you feel you have, and then, but only after having done these mitigation strategies, then you can have a pendant. Maybe you heard about it from a friend and you wear it and you feel better. Well, keep doing it. It's all right. Like, I couldn't explain exactly the mechanisms, but some people that are electrosensitive swear by certain devices and actually do feel better and less sensitive. So that's good, but it's not your first line of defense against this kind of toxin in the environment.
Okay. So then let's go here. I know you've given tons and tons of content already, but if there are three other things besides what we've mentioned, if not, that's completely fine. But are there three other things that you'd say, listen, you should do X, Y, and Z?
Sure. Number one, do not work with a laptop on your lap. Because we talked about cell phone at the beginning of this interview. Cell phone in pocket equals less sperm count, and probably other effects on your testes, including lower testosterone. So if you're a man and you're like, oh, I don't care about sperm, I'm 45 years old, I want to have more children. Do you care about being a man and having testosterone and having muscle? And they're like, oh, yes, I do. Well, do not put your laptop straight in this area, because a laptop on Wi-Fi is just as bad as a cell phone. And in one study, it was a small group, I think it was 26 men, 4 hours of laptop use reduced the sperm count dramatically. So only 4 hours, I think it was 25% loss of motility. So you can have dramatic effect from like working an entire day at your computer. You're already kind of nuking the swimmers. So it's not good for your fertility and even for your overall health, because sperm health is closely related to overall health in men, and that's even all-cause mortality. So it means if you have healthy sperm, if you have healthy sperm at 70 years old, you're probably very healthy. You probably have good hormones. You probably have low stress. You probably have great longevity, and kind of your health span is going to be very, very good. So for anyone, not working on your lap is very important. There are some shielding devices. My wife uses something called the belly armor. So it's for pregnant women, and you have a little blanket that actually shields, I'd say 99.9% of microwave radiation. So you can work on your lap with that. And some Silicon Valley executives use that also. It's called belly armor. I recommend this brand. There's probably others out there. I know Defender Shield is another one. They have a pad. I'm looking into different brands, and it works actually, because if you have silver thread with cotton, it actually blocks almost 100% of the radiation. It's very effective. So it's if you prefer working from your sofa, or maybe you're at work and you're like, oh, there's no way I'm not going to work on my lap. Well, okay, invest in one of those. At least you're protecting yourself and you don't have the heating effect as much also. So it's just more comfortable and you know you're doing something good for your body. So that's number one. And you told me 3, right?
Sure.
Okay. Number 2, turn off the circuit breaker to your entire bedroom at night. And this is something that might sound extreme. You're like, oh my God. Well, if you have heating and here it's minus, I don't know, it's like minus something Fahrenheit right now outside in Montreal. So it's not ideal, but I turn off all the breakers for the light bulbs and the outlets, but not the heater. And it's just to reduce the overall electricity exposure. And that's another kind of EMF called electric fields. And it's just something that makes me, makes me sleep at night a little bit better. Electric fields are linked, for example, with melatonin reduction at night. So chances are, if you sleep in the middle of the forest, you will not have electricity in your head. Let's face it. And you will sleep better, chances are, for a lot of reasons aside from EMFs. But among these factors that are different in Mother Nature, it's no electric fields, no EMFs, no electricity, and you feel better. So same thing in your bedroom, you can turn off the circuit breaker at night. And it's actually Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. He's really a pioneering doctor in holistic medicine. He's seeing people that are so sick, stage 4 cancer, MS, ALS, people that are just on the verge of dying. The average patient he sees has seen an average of 23 other doctors before him. So what he told me is that turning off the circuit breaker is pretty darn essential for people that are so sick. They've become extra sensitive to anything. So you got to remove these factors. I'm talking about people, not the average person that's super healthy on the street and feeling good about themselves. It's someone who's just on the verge of body breakdown. They need to reduce toxins in food. They need to reduce food allergies, probably any kind of stressor, including electricity. So that's just another factor, but he sees good results. So he figures, well, it's free. You just turn off the switch and you're done with it. And most people that I tell this trick to, they tell me, Nick, well, I actually feel better. Even though I don't feel sensitive, I see increase in my sleep. And I see you have an Oura ring, right? So is that it? Is that yeah. So if you can quantify that through apps or something, most people will see a difference, I would think, if you turn off not only the Wi-Fi, but the circuit breaker. So that's number 2 for you. And number 3, I would say, let's talk about children for a second. Everything we talked about applies to children still. And the problem is that, right now there are some movements saying, well, maybe we shouldn't give cell phones to children before the age of 8. And what's the safe amount of technology used for education purposes or for maybe social anxiety and use of social media. So that's one aspect to it. The second aspect is the fact that a cell phone, the way it's tested, it's on a big mannequin head filled with water that kind of resembles vaguely a human head, and that imitates a 220-pound man. So that's how big the head is, way bigger than mine. And when it comes to the head of a children, it's not even comparable. So if you say, well, cell phones are perfectly safe, they follow the standards are safe. Okay, but the standards were not designed for children at all. So if you have a 4-year-old, and that's in one survey, it was in a Philly poor neighborhood, and I was shocked when I heard this one from, I think it's from the American Academy for Pediatrics. 75% of all 4-years-old owned personally their own cell phone at 4. So I'm like, wait a minute, I feel old right now. I'm just 30. I'm like, okay, I just lost this part of history. And why is that? Well, it's probably if you're a responsible parent in a poor neighborhood, what are you worried about? You're worried about them getting in trouble. Anything can happen. So if you have a cell phone, you can call me. So that's actually a very responsible thing to do. But it's just the problem is that they should tell their child to only use it in case of emergency, and to put it in airplane mode when they carry it around, and to not put it near their head, and maybe use earbuds instead to create distance. So all these tricks that I share in the book, in children, it's even more dangerous because their body content has more water per pound of body weight. So they actually absorb most of the time twice the radiation compared to an adult per pound. So if you have an individual that's an adult 100 pound and a child 100 pound, they would still absorb at least twice, and their spinal cord is 10 times twice, 10 times as much. So it's just physics. So they absorb more. So they might be even more prone to getting DNA damage, sleep disruption, other things. So if we do believe that the technology can be a carcinogen and can have some effects on your sleep and this and that, even if you don't feel sensitive, the same thing applies to children, and it's our role as parents. Honestly, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not even a new dad yet. It's going to be in 3 months, and probably I'll be able to judge how hard it is to get kids off the technology. So I cannot tell you what my trick is yet. I'll probably have to figure it out the very hard way. But we still have a social responsibility to at least tell our kids that it's not doing it's doing something. It's doing something. So if they're feeling anxious, the cell phone use these signals can make you anxious, and there's a lot of data around that. So reducing the technology use and maybe having them put the cell phone in airplane mode instead of under the pillow at night. Well, it's great steps to just make your kids aware that it's doing something. And maybe if they see the difference in their sleep, they're going to be, oh, wait a minute, this thing is a hot potato. I should maybe handle it differently. And doesn't break the addiction, though. That's another question. But
That's true.
I think trying to actively educate them on the matter and also just disconnect as a family, I think it's incredibly important in this day and age, and very rare that families do that together, kind of put the devices, stack them on the table, and try to have a conversation. It's hard, especially when you're like super hyperactive. And even us entrepreneurs, or just as a journalist, I can be on my phone a little bit too much. So it's hard to put the technology aside and not think about, do I have an email in there? So that's a whole another topic of how can we make what I call a little bit less stupid use of technology. Technology should be there to serve us and not to enslave us or not to hurt us. And I think it can be achieved. It's just that I think it exploded so fast in the last decade alone that we are all caught up with something, and now people are kind of coming back to the middle a little bit. We see like technologists saying, well, I don't use my cell phone as much. It's known that Bill Gates told his kids not to use cell phones before they were adults, and it's not, I don't think it's about EMFs. It's just a matter of education and
being social.
Yeah, being social. That's well, exactly. Ironically, but so I think it's just an adjustment period. But let's say you got to do things a little bit differently if you want to stay healthy in this day and age, and I think this is one of them.
This is great. Well, Nicolas, thank you so much. I mean, this was awesome. Thank you. We are going to connect people to your new book, right, at emfbook.com.
Yes.
And you're definitely going to connect with Nick and Jen's Healthy Life. All the details will be in the show notes. So his social media, every way you can get in touch with him. And if there are questions, you can leave them in the comments. Make sure you give us a cool review and give him a really cool review. I mean, come on. This stuff is amazing. That'd be cool. And so, Nick, thank you so much.
Thanks. My pleasure. My pleasure. I had a great time, and let's do this some other time.
Definitely. This is an evolving conversation.
Yes.
Locker Nation. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Nicolas on EMF. I'll tell you what, it was my first real dive into the EMF world, reading his book and having this conversation with him. So I highly recommend doing it. We live in a world full of technology. I'm sitting in front of a computer and a monitor right now, a microphone, a cell phone next to me, an iPad next to me, printer and another computer, and all of this stuff that's emitting EMF. And got to be smart of how we actually take care of ourselves, because this will affect our health. And when you go through this book, go ahead, right? Remember again, emfbook.com. Go get the book. When you go through the book, it's gonna make you just more aware, more conscious. And I don't want you to read it and think, oh my God, I'm gonna be scared, I'm gonna be living in a cave. That's not the case, because we do live in a world that's evolving and it's changing, and technology is more than likely gonna be a part of it. And I mean, as far as I can see, So get the book, learn a little bit, apply certain things like putting your phone on airplane mode. I mean, God, that's so easy. And, you know, I look forward to hearing, you know, some of your responses, because my sleep is definitely different when I remember, and I remember most nights to put on airplane mode. So I would love to hear what you have to say about it. And see you on the next side, peeps. This was a good one. All right. Peace out. Bye-bye.